Hello and welcome to English Logic Studio. I'm Emily Grace, and today we will learn useful English phrases for travel. With me is James, who knows a lot about traveling. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Emily Grace. I'm thrilled to share some essential travel English phrases that will help our listeners navigate their trips abroad with confidence.
That's perfect because many of our listeners have told us they feel nervous about using English when traveling. They worry about not being understood or missing important information.
I completely understand that feeling. Even as someone who loves traveling, I remember those anxious moments in countries where I didn't speak the language well, but having a few key phrases ready can make all the difference.
Exactly. Today we'll cover 8 essential travel situations: airport navigation, hotel check-in, ordering food, using public transportation, shopping, asking for directions, handling emergencies, and making small talk with locals.
And for each situation, we'll provide practical phrases, pronunciation tips, and some cultural insights that might save you from awkward moments.
Let's start and help our listeners become confident travelers. The airport is usually the first place travelers need to use English. James, what are some important phrases for airport navigation?
Great question. Let's imagine we're walking through this process step by step. First, when you arrive at the check-in counter, you might hear, "May I see your passport and booking confirmation, please?"
And you can respond with something like, "Here you are," or "Here's my passport and confirmation."
Exactly. Then they might ask, "Would you like a window or aisle seat?" This is asking about your seating preference on the plane.
I always prefer the window seat to enjoy the view, but if you need to use the restroom frequently, an aisle seat might be better.
Good point. After check-in, you'll need to find your gate. Some useful phrases include, "Excuse me, where is gate B12?" or "How do I get to Terminal 3?"
And don't forget about security. You might hear, "Please place your belongings in the tray," or "Please remove your laptop and liquids from your bag."
Right. If you're not sure what to do, simply ask, "What should I do with my shoes?" or "Can I keep my watch on?"
Here's a tip for our listeners. If you don't understand something, don't be afraid to say, "Could you please speak more slowly?" or "Could you repeat that, please?"
That's excellent advice. No one expects tourists to understand everything perfectly. Airport staff are used to dealing with international travelers.
After surviving the airport, the next challenge is usually checking into your hotel. What phrases should our listeners know for this situation?
When you arrive at the hotel, start with, "Hello, I have a reservation under Smith," or "Hello, I have a reservation under my name, John Smith." The receptionist will then likely ask to see your passport or ID.
And if there's any confusion, you could say, "I booked a room for number nights from date to date."
Exactly. The receptionist might then ask, "How will you be paying?" And you can respond with, "By credit card," or "I'd like to pay in cash."
What about asking for specific room features? For example, "I always prefer a quiet room away from the elevator."
Great point. You could say, "Could I have a quiet room?" or "I prefer a room on a higher floor." Or, "Do you have a room with a view?"
And don't forget basic questions about the hotel facilities. What time is breakfast served? Or is there free Wi-Fi in the rooms?
Also useful, "What time is checkout?" And, "Is there a restaurant in the hotel?" If something is wrong with your room, don't hesitate to say, "The air conditioning isn't working," or "The shower is too cold."
One thing I've learned from traveling is that it's always good to confirm if there are any additional charges not included in your booking.
Absolutely, you can ask, "Are there any additional fees I should know about?" Or, "Is the city tax included in the price?"
Now let's talk about one of the most enjoyable parts of traveling: trying local food. But ordering can sometimes be challenging.
Definitely. When you enter a restaurant, you might be asked, "Do you have a reservation?" or "How many people in your party?"
If you don't have a reservation, you can say, "No, we don't have a reservation. Do you have a table for 4 people?"
When looking at the menu, if there's something you don't understand, simply ask, "What is paella?" or "Could you recommend a local specialty?"
And for people with dietary restrictions, it's important to know how to communicate that clearly. For example, I'm vegetarian vegan or I'm allergic to nuts shellfish.
Exactly. You might also want to ask, does this contain peanuts? Or is this spicy?
When you're ready to order, you can say, I'd like the chicken curry, please, or could I have the grilled salmon, please?
And don't forget about drinks. Could we see the wine list? Or I'll have a glass of water, please.
After the meal, you might need to say, could we have the bill, please? Or in American English, could we have the check, please?
And here's where cultural differences come in. Tipping customs vary widely around the world. In some countries, a service charge is already included. In others, tipping is expected. It's always good to research this before your trip.
Great point. You might need to ask, is service included? Or how much should I tip? Getting around a new city can be tricky. What are some essential phrases for using public transportation?
First, you'll need to buy tickets. You might ask, where can I buy a ticket? Or how much is a ticket to Paris?
And there are often different types of tickets, so you might need to ask, is there a day pass available? Or can I use this ticket on both the bus and the subway?
Absolutely. When you're trying to find your way, useful questions include, does this bus train go to Central Park? Or, which platform does the train to London leave from?
And it's always good to confirm, do I need to transfer? Or how many stops until the museum?
If you're unsure when to get off, you can ask a fellow passenger, excuse me, could you tell me when we reach Times Square?
That's very helpful. Sometimes the announcements on public transport can be difficult to understand, even for native speakers.
True. Another useful phrase is this seat taken? If you want to sit down next to someone, or if you need to get off a crowded bus or train, excuse me, I'm getting off at the next stop.
And if you get lost or miss your stop, don't panic. You can always ask, how do I get back to my hotel? Or, what's the best way to reach the Eiffel Tower from here?
One last tip. Transportation apps like Google Maps or local transit apps can be lifesavers when traveling, even if your language skills aren't perfect.
Shopping while traveling can be both fun and practical, whether you're buying souvenirs or necessities. What English phrases are useful for shopping?
When you enter a shop, you might be greeted with, can I help you? Or are you looking for something in particular?
You can respond with, I'm just browsing, thank you, if you're just looking around, or yes, I'm looking for a souvenir if you need something specific.
If you want to know the price, simply ask, how much is this? Or how much does this cost?
And in some places, bargaining is expected. You might say, is this your best price? Or could you give me a better price if I buy two?
However, it's important to note that in many Western countries, bargaining isn't common in regular shops. It's usually only for markets or street vendors.
Good point. If you're trying on clothes, you might need to ask, do you have this in a different size? Or can I try this on?
And when you're ready to purchase, I'll take this one, please, or I'd like to buy this.
Don't forget about payment methods. You might need to ask, do you accept credit cards? Or can I pay in euros, dollars?
And if you're shopping for something specific like a gift, you could ask, do you gift wrap? Or can you ship this to Australia?
One more thing. If you need a tax refund form for tourist tax-free shopping, you should ask, could I have a tax refund form, please? Getting lost is part of the adventure when traveling, but sometimes you need to find your way. How should listeners ask for directions?
Start with a polite approach. Excuse me, could you help me? Or, excuse me, I'm a bit lost.
Then you can ask specific questions like, how do I get to the beach? Or, where is the nearest pharmacy?
And be prepared for the answers, which might include phrases like, turn left right at the traffic light, or go straight for 2 blocks.
People might also use landmarks. It's across from the church, or it's next to the big department store.
If the directions are complicated, don't hesitate to ask, could you repeat that, please? Or, could you speak more slowly, please?
You can also confirm your understanding, so I turn right at the bank, then left at the traffic light. This helps ensure you've got it right.
Asking about distance is useful too. How far is it? Or, can I walk there?
And if walking isn't an option, is there a bus that goes there, or should I take a taxi?
Don't forget to say thank you afterward. A simple thank you so much or thanks for your help goes a long way.
One more tip. It can be helpful to have your destination written down or saved on your phone to show people, just in case there's a language barrier. No one wants to think about emergencies while traveling, but it's important to be prepared. What essential phrases should our listeners know for emergency situations?
In a true emergency, you should know how to say help or emergency. And it's good to know the local emergency number, which varies by country: 911 in the US, 999 or 112 in many European countries.
For medical emergencies, phrases like, I need a doctor or please call an ambulance are crucial.
And if you have a specific medical condition, learn how to explain it. I'm diabetic, or I'm allergic to penicillin, or I have asthma.
That's really important. What about if something is stolen or lost?
You might need to say, my wallet passport has been stolen, or I've lost my bag.
And you'll likely need to report it to the police, so phrases like, where is the nearest police station? Or, I need to file a police report are useful.
For less urgent problems, like if you're lost, you might say, I can't find my hotel, or I've lost my way.
And if your phone is dead or you don't have service, could I use your phone to make a call, please? Or, do you know where I can find Wi-Fi?
One more important phrase. I need to contact my embassy. This might be necessary if you lose your passport or face serious legal issues.
These are all excellent phrases to know, and hopefully our listeners will never need to use most of them. But it's always better to be prepared. One of the joys of traveling is connecting with local people. How can our listeners start conversations and make small talk?
Simple greetings are a great place to start. Hello, or good morning, afternoon, evening, followed by how are you?
Then you might introduce yourself. My name is Sarah, and ask, what's your name?
Mentioning where you're from often starts a good conversation. I'm from Canada. It's my first time visiting here.
Asking questions about the local area shows interest. What's your favorite place around here? Or can you recommend a good local restaurant?
Complimenting the location is usually appreciated. Your city is beautiful, or the food here is delicious.
Asking about customs or traditions can lead to interesting conversations. What's the meaning of this festival? Or why is this building important?
But be mindful that some topics might be sensitive in different cultures. Politics and religion can be controversial subjects in many places.
That's a great point. Safe topics usually include food, weather, sports, and local attractions.
And remember that body language and a smile can go a long way when there's a language barrier. Don't be afraid to use gestures if needed.
Finally, showing appreciation for their help or conversation is important. Thank you for chatting with me, or it was nice meeting you.
And if you want to keep in touch with someone you've met, you might ask, can I add you on social media? Or would you like to exchange email addresses?
We've covered a lot of useful phrases today. Remember, the key to successful communication when traveling isn't speaking perfect English, it's having the confidence to try.
Absolutely. Most people appreciate the effort, even if your pronunciation isn't perfect. And don't be afraid to use translation apps or gestures to help get your message across.
One final tip I'd like to share is to learn a few basic phrases in the local language of the country you're visiting, even if English is widely spoken there. People really appreciate this gesture.
That's great advice. Even just hello, thank you, and goodbye in the local language can make a positive impression.
Before we wrap up, James, do you have any final advice for our listeners who might be nervous about using English while traveling?
Yes, I'd say, don't be afraid to make mistakes. They're part of the learning process. Be patient with yourself, speak clearly, but not too fast, and remember that most people are kind and willing to help travelers.
Thank you so much for joining us today, James. And thank you to all our listeners. Safe travels, and until next time, happy English learning.
Thanks for having me, Emily Grace. Goodbye, everyone, and enjoy your travels.